My name is Brianne H. Williams. I am a licensed professional counselor here in the state of Oregon, and I work with individual adults and couples, and my work focuses on grief, loss, trauma, and the way stress is affecting us. I love working with clients using internal family systems, or IFS. And this video is intended to be a really high level overview introduction to what internal family systems is all about. Some people experience it as a extended metaphor or allegory. It's a mindset. Some people think of it as a practice, but I really love it because I find it myself to be inherently compassion focused. I find it very non-pathologizing. I find it to go deeper in a way that most people can understand and get comfortable with. This video is not intended to be therapy itself. This is just a brief explanation of one method a therapist might use to work with clients on varying issues. Internal family systems takes on the belief that 100% of us, all of us, are made up of different parts inside. It would not be possible to experience mixed feelings about something, for example, if we didn't have distinctly different parts of ourselves. Everyday examples can include part of me wants to go get a good workout in after the end of my day today, but part of me is just feeling really tired and would rather do something more relaxing. Part of me loves my job, but part of me has really been thinking I could be happier somewhere else. Part of me loves this person and really just appreciates and respects them, but a part of me is doubting that they're right for, maybe a certain role here. So again, we can have mixed feelings all the time. And when we really start to practice IFS and work with it like a practice, we can learn so much about what's going on internally all the time for ourselves. And so some people, when they very first hear about this, they get a little uncomfortable, understandably, because this is not the way most of us were taught to think about ourselves in our own mind. And so I just want to clear it up to begin with. Identifying these distinctly different parts does not mean a person has dissociative identity disorder, formerly known as multiple personality disorder. That is a diagnosis for some pretty severe dissociative patterns a person experiences, where parts work, we are talking about kind of normalizing what all of us are doing in day-to-day life and the way that all of us take care of ourselves in different ways in different moments. It is also important to understand the core types of parts inside of us. There's 3 main categories in IFS, and I don't think that the label for these parts is important as understanding the job that these parts do. So we've got proactive protector parts, and we call these managers. We can call them managers, but these are parts who are protective and they're trying to take care of us proactively. So these are our planners. They're getting us to our appointments on time. They're thinking ahead often, and there's a lot of different types of managers in there. They may be trying to seek a sense of control in some way, in some cases. Then we've got another type of protector part, and we all have them. They are our reactive protector parts, which IFS can call firefighters. And the image is like just like a firefighter, like there's already emotional pain that we're in, and so these firefighters are running on scene to try to put out the fire as quickly as possible, and they'll use whatever works, whatever gives us a dopamine hit, whatever distracts us a little bit. So it can be drugs, alcohol, food, it can be screens, it can be all kinds of things that, the emotional fire is going, let's put it out as quickly as we can. Yeah, and then the third type of part is our vulnerable parts, our exiled parts. These parts are often thought of as parts who are carrying burdens, parts of ourselves we've had to sort of stuff down and keep away in order to function a certain way on the outside and in the world. Both of our teams of protector parts are going to be trying to take care of these guys in different ways. And what these vulnerable ones need really is ourselves. They need us. But those protector parts may not fully trust us with these exiles, with these vulnerable ones yet. They may be carrying, we would use the word burdens. It might be heavy emotions, fear, shame, grief, trauma. And so just kind of holding that, the work doesn't begin trying to work with these parts. The early stages of IFS would be about trying to build trust with the protector parts, to get to know them first. And really, again, that relationship has to flow before those parts are going to let us go near some of those heavy burdens that those vulnerable exiled parts are carrying. It can be really painful to come into contact with these parts. Sometimes these parts may hold disturbing thoughts, feelings, memories, images. They can hold fear, shame, some of those really difficult pieces of the human experience. And also that unburdening work, when we get to know them and show up with ourselves to meet them, can be extremely powerful for lasting deep changes in a person's life. And that we don't need to rush that. Like the practice of IFS itself, when done well, is very patient. And there's a lot of trust that whatever does arise is what needs to be arising. Those parts are ready to chat. And if there's something we are, our big therapy goal is to be able to get to, but we're feeling a lot of resistance, then we trust that resistance is meaningful and that we need to show care to that resistance instead of trying to steamroll over it. The thing is like parts themselves, they have a distinct strategy for what they think will get our needs met best in this world. And they don't always consult everyone else inside. They don't always consult ourselves. They are driven to try to get our needs met. And so if we've got a proactive manager part, let's say maybe focusing on tasks at work to try to keep us safe, there may be a lot of other experience being, sort of shoved aside. If we've got a firefighter part that's coping, let's say drugs, alcohol, we all have them, whatever our thing is, screens, food, whatever we're doing to try to put out some of those emotional fires, it might seem on the surface that it's a behavior we quote unquote want to get rid of. It's a quote unquote not good behavior. And I love IFS because we really focus on how there's truly no bad parts. These parts mean well. They're just kind of working on limited information. And with this work, we can bring some more whole awareness to all of what's happening, so that way we can make what we would call self-led decisions. I personally find IFS to be very optimistic, and that resonates for me and my worldview and my experience. And so, one of the main principles of IFS is that just like all of us have parts inside, we also all have a self, a capital S self. And this is similar wisdom that many people might be familiar with from other schools of thought in psychology or philosophy. When we talk about that capital S self, the central us, that resonant self, there's different ways of saying it. But in IFS, people might ask, how do I know what is myself, my true self, my big self? And so in IFS, there's a concept like called the 8 C's of self. So what are the 8 C's of self? We've got a sense of calm, a sense of curiosity, a sense of confidence, a sense of feeling collaborative. We might have a sense of feeling connected, whether that's to ourselves or others or just like the world that we are in. We may feel creative. There's a sense of we are compassionate, and that's, in every direction. We feel compassionate toward parts of ourselves. We feel compassionate toward others. And we have a sense of clarity. We feel clear. So those are the 8 C's of self. So yes, every individual is unique, and the way these energies might be kind of manifested might look different for different people. But universally, it's thought that there is a central self inside of us that cannot be broken, cannot be shattered, cannot be taken away from us, no matter what we have experienced. No matter how much grief, loss, trauma, disenfranchisement we have experienced in our life journey, there is a self inside somewhere. And people might say, wow, it's been a very long time since I felt these things or experienced these things. And that's so valid. And in IFS mindset, we believe that self is still there somewhere. Parts of us might be speaking louder and maybe even 24/7. So it might be hard to access that self, but the self is there. People like to use all kinds of images in parts work, and some people, when they're trying to access that self energy, will kind of visualize sometimes like being a driver on a school bus. So their self is who we want to be the driver, but there's going to be parts in the back of the bus all shouting different things, and sometimes even, running up to the front of the bus and pulling the driver out and taking over. And so again, when people experience like hijacking internally, which I think we've all experienced at some point in our life, where we were just really not our best selves back there, something inside of us kind of took over, we can start understanding who is that part. Other images, someone might picture themselves as kind of a CEO of an organization, and they're picturing all of the different departments that they're hearing from. Like there's the HR department has different goals than the marketing department has different goals than payroll, and the work of being a leader is taking in all of that information for good and healthy decision making, making sure all the departments are honored. Some people will picture, sitting around a campfire with all of their parts and just kind of, hearing them in a informal setting. So again, there's all kinds of images that can also be really helpful for listening. This is not a tool for evading accountability. I've heard a couple of criticisms of IFS, well, we could just blame a part of ourselves for that. And so I want to just reassure people that this is not a tool for evading accountability. Compassion and accountability are not mutually exclusive. And often, when we can see ourselves with more compassion, we can see ourselves more honestly, and that gives us space to start making changes and to start owning our behaviors and working with these parts to find more balance and set boundaries sometimes with parts who need some boundary work lovingly. I feel like this model of therapy can be really shame reducing, and the way it's different than some other conventional Western medicine therapeutic approaches to mental health concerns is the way it looks at symptoms. And so there's certain schools of thought that at least I experience to be potentially shame based about, trying to get rid of our symptoms as quickly as possible. Don't have that thought, you better not do that anymore, quick fix the behavior. And I don't want to diminish the work that people do in their lives with those sorts of approaches. It can take an enormous amount of energy and courage to make behavioral changes. And also, what I think IFS does is it helps us go a little deeper and understand the core issue that was behind a behavior to begin with. One example might look like if a person is struggling with their alcohol use. Let's say a part of them every day wakes up and feels just like fully committed to not using alcohol that day. That part can identify all kinds of reasons to stop using alcohol, the costs on physical health or relationships, or again, just fears about being dependent on it in general. And so that part wakes up with the best of intentions every day. And then by the time the afternoon, evening rolls around, another part shows up that is louder, stronger in that moment, and is like, we just need to numb. We need to numb as quickly as we can. And so if a person is approaching that in a strictly behavioral way, they may be able to make some changes around alcohol reduction that are very meaningful and powerful. And what I think IFS offers, though, is a way of going even deeper. What is that pain that part felt like it needed to numb to begin with? What is going on behind the scenes in that person's life that they may not even be fully aware of? In many cases, someone isn't, but there's pain there that people are managing in all kinds of ways. And when we can bring some curiosity to what that pain is, I think it can really contribute to lasting, deeper changes in a person's life. It can really be helpful for people to practice listening to themselves. It's very tempting to think of the answer we quote unquote should be feeling, or the thing we should be thinking. And so IFS involves a lot of learning how to listen to what's going on inside, and not trying to guess, not trying to assume, not trying to think it out, but really a practice of deep listening. So yeah, this is a really different way of thinking about our own inner experience and the experience of others. Parts, when they are really active, I like to think of them as kind of like a prescription lens that just really changes the way we see the world. When we have like a very strong protector part kind of running the show, everything in our environment is really seen through that part. and the story that part is telling about what's happening, which again may have a lot of truth or validity to it, I don't know. But when we recognize that's just a part, and maybe even one other part, even 5% of us might feel a little differently about the situation, it can also help us, again, lead from that, make choices from that self instead of from parts. If you are curious to learn more about internal family systems or supplement therapeutic work between sessions, I highly recommend the book No Bad Parts by Richard Schwartz, who is the psychologist who developed this model. There's a lot of exercises in it. There's a lot more explanation for these different concepts. If you are an Oregonian and you're interested in working together, my website is down in the notes section of this video. Please feel free to reach out. There are also therapists who practice internal family systems all over the world. So if this is speaking to you, I strongly encourage you to look up a therapist in your area and get started on this journey. Thank you so much for your time today. I hope this was helpful.